Jimmy, we would like you to talk about basically your involvement with the music scene. You were definitely playing well before the group scene appeared.
Yeah, 56, I think. I was playing in 1955 and 56, all around then. I was with some big dance bands here in the 50s. And some interesting ones. For instance, this guy Johnny Butler, he had a bit of a name among people who my age and all the rest of it.
Yeah. So the outfit Butler decided to go to America. So I had a nice little flat. So I had to get a hand cart from Moore Street, put the furniture in the thing, and go back to a tenement house in Mercer Street in Dublin, where I lived there for nearly a year now, in a room that wasn't. There was nobody there, you know. It was all broken down, condemned room. So that was the start. It was a very exciting thing. And I put my first million into the bank, and it was a lovely time, you know. Like we had a donut on Thursday. That was really heavy stuff. And then I got the Moon Dog. This is the son, Johnny Butler's son. He came back he had been in America. When he came back, and he decided that he would start against this rock and roll, get a 15-piece band reading modern jazz or that type of stuff. So we practiced for the 7 weeks of Lent, I think it was then, wasn't it? Lent was 7 weeks in anyway. And so we practiced every day there. So it was up in Mountjoy Square. So the brass would practice in one room, the rhythm section in another, and then the reeds, the saxophones in another. So when it all finished then, we would all go into a big room and see how we played together. And I remember there was a big picture, or whatever you want to call it, a print of the Sacred Heart. And we'd all have to get down on our knees, and Butler said to say, for fuck's sake, let's hope that we get all this together, you know. So we went on the road, and we were an instant success. For instance, we went to Finglas. There was a dance, I think it was a local hop in a parish, Finglas. And I think the fee was £5 for the band. And the priest didn't want to give the £5. And he was saying, the kids didn't like it, you know. And Butler says, Father, there's 30 bob, buy yourself a fucking long player. So we were going down a bomb, like, you know. So the scene was quite mad with the rock and roll thing, you know.
Yeah.
There was already madness in Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah, I joined Redwood Forward. Then it was all local lads from Dublin. Three lads, I think, were in it, 3 or 4. And we worked for 6 weeks around Ireland. Then after that, we went to London. We were based in London, and we worked all around England and Scotland. And then we had one trip to Sweden, which was very hilarious, but it was quite hilarious. And then we came back, and after a while then, this place called the Star Club in Hamburg opened. And we were one of the, I think it was only open 2 months when we got there. So when I went there and I seen all these drum kits on the stage, I thought, oh Jesus, look at all, I'm going to rob a few of them cymbals. I thought it was a factory or something. Didn't know that, I'd never seen before all these bands together. So this was all, that was the start then of that big thing, but it had started a little bit before in Hamburg with 2 places there, you know, all in the same street, the Grosse Freiheit. So that was it. So I came back with Redwood Forward, had a Redwood Forward. Oh yeah, I must tell you that there would be a funny one there, that we went into a pub, it's still a famous pub because of the Beatles, called Gretel and Alphonse. And we were talking to these people, and they all had long hair, and we had to wear nice suits and short back and sides, all this stuff. And these fellas were telling us how much they got. And they were getting nearly double what we were getting. And Emil Ford had a big name in England. And these bands had no name. They were mainly from Liverpool. They had no name. So we, with the few drinks we got back on, we had a little row with Emil. So they would say, and now, and jetzt kommt the us London, Emil Ford and the Checkmates. So we would have a row, and then they would have to close the curtains, and they'd come again, and then I thought it was great. Then at the last opening, and now comes Emil Ford and the Checkmates. There was a fella in the band called Barry Scully. He was a great old friend of mine, bass player, and he says, "You know, Emil, I could fucking own you." He says, "What do you mean?" "Well, I used to get silver paper for the black babies." So that was, I knew then we were on the way out. So when we got back to London, I decided to make a move out. So I joined the dance band, but Barry Scully still kept with Emil Ford. And because I had fallen in love in Hamburg, another fella got me a job in a place called the Top 10 Club. So that's when I went there. Then I had 5 years there in Hamburg, with all sorts of adventures there, working with people like the Everly Brothers, Chubby Checker, Bill Haley, and there'll be lots of others, you know, going on these European tours, because at that time they wouldn't bring over a band. It would be too expensive. The only one I've seen with a band or two would be Fats Domino and Ray Charles. They had their own fellas. But the others, the most they would have would be a piano player. So we too dare to bring over a band, so they would do a tour of Europe. So we would go on the tour of Europe. Well, in 1967, the scene was getting very bad. Like how it was, the beat scene was collapsing in Germany. So Star Club had gone down, so we didn't know what to do. This is a fellow called Tony Sheridan, and he had, the Beatles were his backing band. So that was his claim to fame, especially later on in life. The Beatles got so big that he would go to these Beatle festivals all over the world. You know, who died about 3 years ago, by the way, Tony Sheridan. And Tony Sheridan was fantastic. He was, there's a lot of people in Hamburg said that the Beatles were nothing, it was Tony Sheridan. So Tony was great. So anyway, we went to Vietnam. We got an offer to go to Vietnam. And we went to Vietnam, and then so the journey over was quite heavy. All those.
So how long in total did you spend in the Far East?
Vietnam, a year and 8 months.
Wow.
So I was there for the main offensive, the Tet offensive.
Wow.
And your methods of travel there was helicopter, cargo plane, or sometimes convoy, and the convoy was, that was dangerous. You're going to be hit on a convoy.
Any hairy experiences?
Oh, plenty of them, but they get bored, especially to somebody else. Yeah, there was a lot of hairy incidents. It was rumoured that one of the band was killed. That was a rumour. And it's still, you read about Tony Sheridan, that he was supposed to be killed, but I think he put that out himself when he got back. But his funny one, how he left, was very funny. We were made honorary, I was made an honorary major. Sheridan was made an honorary captain. Sheridan was 6'4" or 6'3". He was a big guy. So the suit fits him fantastic, you know. So he would spend some time polishing his boots and adjusting himself. So when he get out of the plane and the guys would come to get the gear and all the rest of it, they would salute Sheridan. And then Sheridan would want to see the perimeter and the guns on the perimeter, and they would go, "Hey, did you see the crazy new captain?" He was a captain, and he believed he was a captain. So Sheridan was getting into all sorts of trouble, which he was he got into in Germany and wherever we went in Europe. And so he's in jail. I'll give you one example of that. We were playing, and there was all these guys on the hills around us in foxholes, and they had all these helmets on them and all the rest of it. So there was an old lorry, and we were on the back of this juice and a half, this 2.5 ton lorry. So we get up and I start to play, then the bass player started to play, then Sheridan gets up and he's naked onto the lorry. So all the helmets go up in the air from the foxholes. And so that was it. So we get up, we run to a helicopter, we get in the helicopter and we come back to Saigon. But now we're working in an officers club, which is a regular club on the biggest base in the world. And so it's a proper, you've got to be dressed up in your gear, all right, but clean. So I started to play, and I always got a big cheer because I wore sneakers. So that got a cheer when you just came out first. So I come out, do a little bit of the drum stuff, and I have the sneakers. Then the bass player comes out, then there's a rush of the police, the military police down. Sheridan is naked, because he was naked up in the other one. See, so we thought, oh, that went down well, they threw up the helmets in the air, now we're going to do this one down here. So he was put in jail for that. So he was put in jail for a few things. So one very funny one was, he was put in jail in a place called Doney, which was up north. And I heard Tony was in jail, so I went up to see him. And so I said, what have you got against this guy? You know, what are the charges? Imitating an officer in wartime. That was wrong. And so I said to him, you know, you couldn't get done for that, you know, like you're going around with a gun and a machine gun and that, you know, you could have a handgun, you could have a small gun, but to go around armed like Che Guevara or something, that wasn't a deal, you know, and with all his pips on him and all the rest of them. So I was in jail talking to him and I said, what fucking happened? So he told me to imitate, and I said, but how did that come up? Because they let us go around with all the uniform now. He said, yeah, he said, but I'm charged with, I ordered a helicopter up. And while the helicopter was up, the base was hit. And he wanted another 2 helicopters, so there was 3 helicopters up. I said, why were 3 helicopters up? I lost my suitcase. I said, what? You lost your fucking suitcase? I said, yeah. I said, what? Hey, it was a Samsonite. So there was a great advertising plug for a Samsonite. So he was taken out there, sent to the Philippines, and then finished up in Australia. So I worked with bands where second-rate Las Vegas bands who came over to entertain the Americans as just a drummer working for different groups. So after nearly 2 years, I came home. But I was missing in action. That was terrific. So that would be Vietnam.
Brilliant. So anyway, you're back in Dublin and you decide to give lessons.
Well, it wasn't a conscious decision or something. I think I just slipped into that. Probably went down to hear the band and spoke to the drummer, and so it started. So people came up. Among the names that I remember would be Noel Bridgeman, Brian Downey, Danny O'Keefe, a lovely lad from his father was a colonel, I think. Yeah, it was. I can't think of the name at the minute.
Timmy
Creedon. Timmy, I'm about to blonde there. Timmy Creedon. So there were quite a few of them, and it was nice to see that not only did you give them a few little tips or whatever, but you became friends with them. You know, and that was nice to listen to young fellas starting out and with all their dreams. So that was an interesting. But I was never involved in this beating because I worked in a few hotels then with Noel Keelan in the Gresham. In what was the Shelbourne. And then we used to do the sessions in, there was a studio here called the Eamon Andrews studio. So we used to do that one. And then I worked with John Querney for a while in the Burlington. We were in the Burlington, and then we went to Mosney. So that was the way it was going then. Then in '87, I lost the job in '87 in the Burlington and in Mosney. So I went away again, and then eventually worked in the jazz clubs. Ate the club. There was one famous club in Hamburg. Worked there for 2 years nearly, and then got a job as a teacher. and I'd spent then 10 years teaching in Hamburg, outside of Hamburg, a place called Glinde. And that was great. There was regular money coming in, you were getting holidays, getting paid for your holidays. Didn't know myself. So that's about it.
How long are we doing approximately?
About 5 hours. That's what said you won't take a coat off. No. Look, it's about an hour at most.
Great stuff there. But do you have any little stories about when you were, teaching Noel or Brian or
But Noel could get sued.
over? Like, did you give them many lessons, Jimmy?
I would imagine it wouldn't be over years or anything.
No.
And I think it takes so much, you set to play an instrument.
Yeah.
It takes time to develop, and I think sometimes your character even comes out after you learn a certain amount, so Noel being more aggressive, whatever word you want to use on that, and then you would have like Timmy Creedon, he a nice gentle type, so some of that stuff comes out in your playing. Not always correct.
You could tell, obviously, that these guys had a future ahead of them from very early.
Not
on,
at all.
didn't you?
How could you tell the future?
But if you knew
the
that,
music
he has it. He has it. He's going to be a great player. You would have known by listening to them that this guy is going to be good. He had a talent. He wasn't just a waster.
Well, say when I worked in London, London is the place. If you were very good up in the Highlands in Scotland, you want to make a name, you go down to London. And in London, the talent down in London was frightening, and still is. And I still believe that whatever happens here, music-wise, a lot of it is Irish music orientated with that sort of stuff. But London is where it's at. And so how can you say, could you put those lads that I was saying that had about 2 years practice and all the will in the world and everything else, but how could you put them up against, if that's what you said, against London, where these guys have been all years, and they could be from Southampton there, England being so much bigger than Ireland, and we were then very much a village, Dublin. Now it's spread out a little bit more, but nevertheless, it's very hard to say, these few drummers that come in Dublin, and look at the drummers that's in London, which they're coming from the whole of England, because you only got the best guys, and sometimes they could frighten you. Like we want to talk about the drumming end, there was some frightening guys came from London, and then what came from New York or whatever in America, So we were it was a local industry, really. And I think at Skid Row, Tin Lizzy, they made it good. I think Tin Lizzy were very good. I think they were up there, See, I'm still the working class job maybe comes out now and again. These guys have to struggle and all, and there's certain people that have just got the nose up and they're born with this stuff and they believe in themselves, And I'd love to be able to tell you some stories about the beat scene here, because I'm sure there are many, which you already have people, I'm sure, on the programme, but I don't have any of the stories. But I do, the working class thing is very big, but not to be stupid about it. But I do tend to go on the side of the worker job, Since if you wanted to get a job on a boat, the boats used to go then to Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth in the 50s. They went over to New York. So if you want to see the good jazz players, you try to get on the boat. But to get on them boats, there was a fellow called Geraldo. He was a band leader. So he controlled the boats. And then it was called Geraldo's Navy. So many of the musicians, good musicians, went over there just to go to New York to watch the players. So that was called Geraldo's Navy. So these guys, which were all Jewish, they controlled the business, and they were hard businessmen. Some of them were gangsters.
What did you do on the boat? Did you have to gig on the boat?
Oh yeah, you were just playing on the boat. You would for the passengers. You had 2 or 3 different bands on the boat. You'd have the first class, then the steerage class. So just to get to New York and spend a few nights around 42nd Street and all that. A lot of these musicians, English types, you see, this is where I come in again. These English, they were getting all this information. We weren't getting this information at all. You know.
When they were bringing back records.
All this sort of stuff. I think that would have happened more with the lads that you're interviewing. Then they got more information in it. You know. The deal was for me was liking the instrument, playing, having a bit of fun, and then when you got married, having to try and make a living out of it, and that was quite difficult. You know. But it wasn't. It's a little dream. The dream is still there, sort of thing. You think, oh, maybe next week I'm going to get a gig.
Are you still playing?
No.
Is that by choice?
No. Let me think about that by choice. No, I don't work anymore. I'm too old. But I still practice, like I've done an hour, say, this morning. Now, that's not a boast. What that does is it calms me down. And if you get something out of that hour, sometimes you get up there and you practice and nothing happens. You know what I mean? It doesn't stay in anymore, the retention stuff. But sometimes it works, and then you work on that idea, and then all of a sudden, it's a great buzz. Of course, a few bob as well will be handy as well. But that is a great buzz, and I think that's the reason why you're in it. Why do you go in it as a kid? You know? And you would have to ask all the other lads that you interview. It's not for the money. It's something to do with being on the stage, and then maybe eventually comes a love of the music. But if you love the music too hard, you can screw yourself up, because you're never going to get to the. You know, I know a few people here that committed suicide from the music, not from drugs, because the music wasn't from drugs or drinking. The music, it just got too much for them, you know. Only a few I know. So it is a wonderful business, and it seems to be like you get again those regal gobshites, you too, you know, and people adore them. So you know you've got a statue of St. Patrick, you too, and a few of the ex-popes or something, you know. So they're up there in a hierarchy which they don't deserve. So they get like. They're asked about world peace, and all this sort of stuff. I was never asked about world peace. Can you understand me? They have a thing, that a power that is far beyond as a troubadour. Maybe they should even learn to be better troubadours. That just depends.
Yeah, well, I understand. I think.
Like, in other words, there's a power in that pop stuff that is, it's far too big. And they begin to believe, I am now saying this, you know, the heavens are going to open now, you know. I'm releasing this information, like the three kids from Fatima, you know, I'm going to tell you now. It's all a heap of shite, you know, like everyone is trying to learn.
You've had a great life though, Jimmy. I mean, have you any
Well,
regrets?
take away that's a nice way of finishing that. Not at all. Well, should I start down rolling and crying? Look at it, it's been a life, and it has been a bit of fun, to be honest with you. And I wouldn't have imagined I was not just a labourer in a day job, and I think I got more fun this way. I'll give you an example of that. I came home one time, and this was in the 80s, I think, and I met a guy that I used to work with in a printers. I was a labourer in the printers, so to say. And he was telling me about the day, this was in July I met him, and he said they had a great Christmas party. That's the difference. He's talking about the great Christmas party in December. In the music thing, you nearly had a party every night. So it was this easy way of going on. And I think you stay a child a little bit more in the music game. Whereas people who are, I don't think there's many adults in it, and if they are, they're successful. But the little dreams are still kids, you know. But the other ones, the serious ones, like, you know, they have their houses and their children all go to college and everything else. And the musicians are still blowing their nose and thinking, where is the next gig? But I'm sure the lads that you interview will be able to tell you great stories about here and all the goings on, because it's quite a funny business. Forget the playing on the stage, because that's really only the half of it, but that's the one that we like. But all the ins and outs and all the weaving and dealing, the ducking and the diving and, you know, people trying not to pay you, wonderful stuff. You know, after that, when you finish it, which maybe 60 years old, you could open a little stall in the Dandelion Martins selling rubbish. In other words, you get to be a little bit alert, but you still remain young at heart. And that's about it, you know.
When you left, I had that same bad feeling. Love just walking out the door again. These wounds are slow and healing. My heart's there for the stealing. You play the game of love and you win. You play the game of love and you win. I've had enough. Your city lies and you're scheming. To think of love, I must have been dreaming. This game's been going on, oh, for much too long. You play the game of love and you win. You play the game of love and you win. So sad. So sad. So sad. So sad. So here I go, I'll change the game I'm dealing. A deuce for you, an ace for me, what a feeling. This game's been going on, oh, for much too long. You play this game of love and you win. You play this game of love and you win. When you left, I had that same bad feeling. Love just walking out the door again. These wounds are slow and healing. My heart's there for the stealing. You play this game of love and you win. You play this game of love and you win. Don't play it, babe. Don't play that game of love. Don't play it, babe. Don't play that game of love. Don't play it, babe. Don't play that game of love.